the last 10 years, as the prospects for Scotland inside the UK have got lesser and lesser, and support for an independent future has grown, we have also witnessed another phenomenon. And that is that the United Kingdom, the British state, through its mechanism of the Westminster Government and the Supreme Court, has doubled down on its denial of that aspiration. So much so that it now seeks to use the constitutional arrangements of this country in the 1998 Scotland Act in order to prevent the exercise of self-determination by the people of Scotland. That is where we are today, and it is a much different place than where we were in 2011 or 2012. And that is why I support the strategy outlined by John Swinney, because it marks a step in a new direction. It marks at its centre, at its core, the need to assert our self-determination, the need to build consent for that. And this is not about a Section 30 order. We are way beyond Section 30 orders. This is no longer about asking permission to do something. This is about demanding that the right we have to do so be acknowledged by the British state. I understand the motivation of people moving the amendments, and I have some sympathy with it. And by the way, I think it is a good thing and remarkable that a conference of this size is able to debate its disagreements in public, in front of the media, and have a proper discussion about it. And I won't vote for Amendment B because I believe it gives us less opportunity and less chance of winning what we want than otherwise. Even if we could get over the inevitable confusion of trying to convince people what the election was about when they thought it was about something else. Even if we could convince people to put to one side all their other concerns and just vote in this one question. There are two main flaws with this approach. The first is that although there may be 50% support in this country for an independent future, much of that support is shallow, is unconvinced, is critical. They want time, they want questions answered. And if we say to those people that they're not going to get the time and they're not going to have the questions answered, the yes and no decision is in 6 months' time, then we will drive away people that we would otherwise have on our side. And the second problem is this. Even if it were possible to get a majority of people to vote for independence, 51% in an election, when even all the independence parties added together are only in 41%, even if that were possible, what do you do then when the British government says, no, you didn't have the right to make that decision? What do you do then? I don't understand why people think that if we get a majority in the Parliament to ask for a referendum, that will be denied by the British government, but a majority asking for full independence now is going to be okay with it. It is a nonsense to suggest that.
Next vote is with reference to Amendment B. All of those who are in favour of Amendment B, please raise your cards now. Cards down. All of those against Amendment B, cards up. Hands down, please. Amendment B falls overwhelmingly. The first vote, if you get your cards ready, will be on Amendment A. So if I could ask all of those in favour of Amendment A to raise your cards now. Cards down, please. And can I ask all those against Amendment A to raise your cards? Cards down, please. That is the substantial vote against Amendment A. So now, terms of Amendment C, the supporter, the mover of Resolution 6, said that he accepted Amendment C, so if I could put it to conference, Tyler to conference, do you accept Amendment C by acclaim? And likewise with Amendment D, party leader indicated, or more than indicated, said that he was content with Amendment D, and if conference accepts, we can accept by acclaim if that is required.
Thank you. Conference. With 33 years' experience in public law, including peer selection as a best lawyer in the UK for my work in public law, I want to explain the legal basis underpinning the First Minister's strategy. Let me be clear. Securing an SNP majority is the best legal route to a Section 30 order since 2014 because of the 2011 precedent. How does that work? Well, let's consider the relevant facts relating to Scottish democracy that secured a Section 30 in 2011. 1. Scotland's right to self-determination. 2. SNP's core objective to secure independence. 3. SNP securing a majority despite the D'Hondt system. And 4. Support for independence polling around 30%. With the 2026 SNP majority, the relevant facts would be 1. Scotland's right to self-determination. 2. SNP's core objective to secure independence, and that does not apply to the Green Party. 3. An SNP majority despite D'Hondt for a second time. 4. SNP being re-elected after 20 years in government and as a majority government. 5. Support for independence polling around 50%. 6. Scotland taken out of the EU despite voting Remain. And 7. The 2011 precedent, which is a positive precedent for the Scottish Government. So the legal basis of Westminster's 2011 decision would be significantly strengthened in our favour, and the burden of proof would transfer from the Scottish Government to Westminster. Now, there's a clear legal presumption that the 2011 Westminster decision was reasonable in the legal sense. That is, it was based on relevant facts, ignoring irrelevant facts. With an SNP majority, I can see no relevant fact relating to Scottish democracy that could outweigh those 7 facts to allow Westminster legitimately to refuse a Section 30. It would be legally unreasonable to do so, with the Scottish Government having a remedy through judicial review. This legal position does not apply to an independent supporting majority, for which there is no positive precedent. There have been 2 independent supporting majorities, neither secured a Section 30. That precedent is therefore a negative precedent against the Scottish Government. And we need a legitimate process to independence to ensure international recognition. An SNP majority is critical. Not at all easy, but it is possible. Everyone, every SNP member, every yeser, should consider the opportunity cost of failing to deliver an SNP majority next year, or we will live to regret it. In legal terms, Conference, the time is now Don't squander it on academic pieces without precedent.
Delegates, it's my pleasure to move Resolution 6 in the name of my Deputy Keith Brown and myself.
Scottish Parliament election on the 7th of May 2026 will be fought by the Scottish National Party on a platform of independence for Scotland. The people of Scotland are continually devastated by the Westminster system of governance. The two-child cap, bedroom tax, Internal Market Act, free ports are some examples. Incomes have been stagnant, energy bills are extortionate, Scotland is full of energy, windmills, oil and gas, and the price of food is constantly rising. Scotland is an afterthought within the UK. The UK economy is run from London for the whole of the UK and fails to understand that Scotland's challenges and resources are different from other parts of the UK. Scotland's population tends to a reduced average lifespan and a falling working age population. Jobs, wealth and opportunities often end up in London and the southeast of England. The system often provides disproportionate benefit for a few people who are already rich. The people of the UK have been terribly damaged by Brexit, and because of this, the people of Scotland have been isolated from Europeans. Scottish citizens have lost their European rights of free movement and a host of other things. These are things that cannot be replaced under continued UK governance. Scotland now has many people who are unable to participate in the 2014 referendum. It took Rhodesia 14 years to achieve independence, and they had to rejoin the empire before becoming Zimbabwe. For those who think that UDI is an option, one definition of a government is a body in control of the overwhelming force. Scotland's armed forces are loyal to the monarch and they are controlled from Westminster. To renew our nation, we must gain legitimate recognition in Scotland and the rest of the UK and abroad. How Scotland gains independence is therefore very important. The process must be agreed by the Scottish and Westminster governments. It must be democratic. It must be constitutional, and it must be legal. To renew our nation, we must gain legitimate recognition in Scotland, the remainder of the UK and abroad. Scotland cannot be independent if Scotland is the only country that recognises that state of being. The process must maximise participation for many Scots to ensure popular consent. A national referendum provides a clear yes or no answer, which is easy for all to recognise. The election of 2011 produced a majority SNP government, an amazing feat as the system we used was designed to stop majority governments being elected. The election of 2011 preceded the referendum. Although the referendum did not create an independent Scotland, it did create a precedent. A majority SNP government on the 7th of May 2026 would produce a situation where proceedings would have to follow that precedent. Scotland must elect a majority SNP government on the 7th of May 2026 to create an incontestable route to a new referendum. A Scottish Constitutional Convention will be set up to gather support for Scotland's right to decide and support from the Scottish people, civic bodies and international opinion.
The need to achieve independence has never, ever been greater for Scotland. We're seeing growing support for independence in the polls. People are crying out for a fresh start, for hope, So we have an obligation, a duty, to offer it to them, to give them a credible plan to deliver independence if people vote for it. Because if we don't, another generation of children will be left to languish under a dismal, hopeless Westminster system that is drifting into a very dark place, and that is a prospect I cannot abide. The precedent is clear. When the SNP win a majority, we deliver a referendum on independence. We did it in 2011. I want us to do it in 2026. So we're going to win a majority for the SNP to deliver that choice for Scotland. Some say in good faith that a pro-independence majority in Parliament is enough, and it should be. It's a disgrace that it has not been. The UK parties have systematically denied Scotland's democracy, but we are Scotland's party and we must ensure Scotland's voice is heard. Some might say we should not be playing by Westminster rules. I would rather think of it as beating them at their own game. They say a one-party majority is needed for a mandate. I say challenge accepted by the SNP. Others say we're too ambitious, but ambition is in this party's DNA. When this party was founded to campaign for self-government, that was more than ambitious, it was the longest of long shots. When Winnie Ewing stood in Hamilton, that was ambitious. Nobody expected that call for the world to stop so Scotland could get on. So I am choosing to be ambitious, but I'm also choosing to be realistic. Because an SNP majority is well within our grasp. When I became party leader, we were predicted to reach just 36 seats. At the start of this year, it was 54 seats. By last week, it was 60 seats. We are within touching distance of the 65 seats that will make the world sit up and take notice and deliver our choice over Scotland's future. When this party unites, puts its shoulder to the wheel and works to a common goal, there is nothing Westminster can offer to stop us. So I'm asking us today to be clear with the Scottish people what we are offering them and what we are asking of them. That we go to our fellow Scots between now and May with a clear, simple and unambiguous message. Only a vote for the SNP will secure Scotland's right to decide. Only a vote for the SNP will secure Scotland's independence. It's what this party is about. It's why I joined as a teenager. It's why I fought for this party through thick and thin. It's why I'm proud to lead this party today. Because let me be clear with you, delegates. I did not take on the leadership of this party to make a difference at the margins, or to make a bit of progress towards independence, or even pave the way for the next generation to win it. No, I took on the leadership to deliver independence, and that's exactly what I'm going to do for Scotland. Uniting behind it, and spending every day between now and May advancing the case that independence is the fresh start that we need. If we do that, we will win our majority. We will deliver Scotland's choice, and we, the Scottish National Party, will win independence for Scotland. I move the resolution.
As campaign manager in 2021, we won 64 seats. Had we had the same proportion of list votes in 2021, we would have had 69 seats once again in Scotland. That's why the list vote is very important. Since 2014, can you remember the promises that were made that the Sewell Convention was going to be written into law, that Scotland's voice would be respected, that Scotland's place in the European Union would be guaranteed? These were the lies of the no side, who reneged on those promises as soon as the ink was dried. And we've seen the consequences of Brexit, one of which, of course, is the United Kingdom Internal Market Act, which guts devolution. You've seen the absolute scandal in the last couple of weeks of Labour MPs being told they've got £20 million to spend in local constituencies by the UK government on devolved functions. in order to try, in my view, to corrupt the election next year. So we've seen the dismantling of the current devolution settlement. It went from Gordon Brown saying the sole convention was to be guaranteed, to the UK government arguing in the Supreme Court that the sole convention was merely a self-governing ordinance, i.e. they could pick and choose when they wanted to use it. And I'm just trying to point out the contempt that we've been shown since the referendum. Now, because of that, and because of subsequent victories at the ballot box, I think there is no more case for pleading with the UK government to do the decent democratic thing and agree a referendum. There's no point in continuing to go to the UK government. We're at the stage now where we have to go to a higher authority than the Supreme Court, a higher authority than the so-called sovereignty of the Westminster Parliament. And we should rely on the Scots tradition of the people are sovereign. So in order to enable that, of course, that goes back to 1320, but also previous judgments in recent years and centuries which said that the people of Scotland are sovereign. We are allowed to overturn our rulers if that's what we choose to do. And that's the credo that we should follow. But if we want to do that, there are two things which I think have to happen. The first is to make sure we achieve that unambiguous victory, not to impress Westminster, although it is interesting that English law is based on the principle of stare decisis, where you look back at previous precedent and you go along with that. It's not for the Westminster government, it's to tell the world. The majority of people in Scotland have voted in an unambiguous majority in support of their right to determine their own future. And the second part to it is the establishment of a convention. That convention, work on it has already begun. I'm not taking this vote for granted, it's existing party policy, but work has begun. That will start tomorrow, and it will include not an independence convention, not an SNP convention, but a broad-based civic convention where everybody in Scotland that agrees that Scotland should have the right to decide comes in behind that. It will be a civic campaign with civic organisations across the board. I'm very hopeful and I'm very confident that the STUC, for example, who support Scotland's right to decide, will be involved in that. But right across civic Scotland, public demonstrations of wider support than just the Scottish Government or the SNP, international corroboration of Scotland's right to self-determination. If that can build in the next 6 months, so there is no doubt in anybody's mind, this is not just an SNP idea, the fact that Scotland should have a right to decide. But it's fundamentally a statement that if you have the right to self-determination, you can't have somebody else telling you when you can exercise that right. Self-determination means that we decide. So the two things coming together, the 65 votes, and I have to say, the idea, and I know that people have been so exasperated and frustrated by the intransigence of the Westminster government, but honestly, the idea of saying that the list votes will count towards a mandate either to independence or anything else, you can't go to the people of Scotland and say, did you realise that when you were voting for additional members of the Scottish Parliament, you were actually voting for independence? They've got to treat the people of Scotland with respect. And the only way we can achieve independence is to ask a clear question and get a clear answer, which is yes to independence.
A good, long, vibrant debate, and I wouldn't doubt the sincerity of any of the views that have been put forward. And if conference listens to nobody else in this debate, listen to Anne Faulds, because Anne Faulds gave this conference some absolutely fabulous legal advice that will be the underpinning of much of what we argue as a party. And I want to say one last thing to the conference, and I say it from the bottom of my heart. I am totally and utterly devoted to winning Scottish independence. I believe in the sovereignty of the Scottish people. Some of the things that have been said that apparently represent my view of the strategy are unfounded. Nobody knows the tactics I'm going to deploy if we get 65 seats in the Scottish Parliament. So keep watching, because Scotland's on the journey to independence.
Okay, well, what we have now after yesterday's fantastic debate is a two-pronged strategy. On the one hand, the SNP is committed to winning an absolute majority of seats at the Scottish Parliament, and one of the benefits of that, of course, is a precedent. That's what we did in 2011, that's what led to the referendum. But the other part of it is to establish a convention, not an SNP convention, not an independence convention, but a convention of all those people in Scotland that believe in Scotland should have the right to decide, even if they don't support independence, and to build that support right the way through to the election. And those two things taken together will make it an unanswerable case that Scotland must have its right to decide. That's the strategy we're taking forward. First of all to the referendum, but then beyond that to winning independence.
I took on the leadership to deliver independence, and that's exactly what I'm going to do for Scotland.